On my daughter's wedding day, the driver suddenly shoved my wife into the car trunk and threw a blanket over her. "What the hell is this?" I barked. "Sir, hide quickly and stay quiet. You have to see this," he hissed. I climbed in after her. You won't believe what happened next. It shocked everyone.
Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now.
My name is Howard Harrison. I'm 67 years old, and I've spent most of my life selling cars in Austin, Texas. Not just any cars, I built Harrison Motors from a single used lot into 4 dealerships: Toyota, Honda, Ford, and Chevrolet. Sold the business 5 years ago for $12.4 million, but I kept the land. Smart money is in real estate, my father used to say. He was right about that, if nothing else. But here's the thing about success. It doesn't mean a thing if you've got nobody to share it with. That's where Vera comes in. I met her 43 years ago at the University of Texas Library. I was a business major who couldn't find a single book I needed, and she was a student librarian with the most patient smile I'd ever seen. I asked her about economic theory textbooks. She asked me if I'd ever actually read one. I said no, and she laughed. That laugh. I knew right then I'd spend my life trying to hear it again. Vera and I built everything together. She became head librarian at Austin Public Library, worked there for 32 years before retiring. Now she teaches calligraphy classes to seniors at the community center, creates handmade books that belong in museums. She's the warm to my sarcastic, the patience to my impulse. When I want to charge into battle, she's the one who draws up the battle plan first. We have codes, Vera and I. 43 years of marriage gives you a secret language. Remember that evening in San Antonio? Means, careful, something's wrong. A slight tilt of her head means, I see what you're missing. And when she goes quiet, really quiet, that's when I know to pay attention. We live in Tarrytown, a beautiful neighborhood with old oak trees and neighbors who wave when they drive past. Our house on Live Oak Boulevard isn't flashy, but it's ours. We raised our daughter Megan there. Watched her take her first steps in the living room. Taught her to ride a bike in the driveway, waved goodbye when she left for college. Megan, my little sunshine. She was the sweetest child you'd ever meet, always running to greet me when I came home from work, always drawing pictures for her mother, always asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue, Daddy? Why do birds fly? Why do you love Mommy so much? Because she's smarter than me, I'd tell her, and prettier, and she puts up with my jokes. Megan would giggle at that. Vera would shake her head and smile. But something changed about 2 years ago. That's when she met Jason Coleman. Jason is a real estate lawyer at his father's firm, Coleman and Associates. Fancy degree, expensive suits. The kind of handshake that squeezes too hard because he thinks that's what powerful men do. He looked at me the first time we met like I was something stuck to his shoe. A car salesman, his eyes said. How quaint. I didn't say anything, but I noticed. Vera noticed first, of course. She always does. There's something cold behind his smile. She told me one night after they'd left dinner early. Watch how Megan changes when he's around. I watched, and I saw it. Our daughter, our warm, loving, curious daughter, became someone else when Jason was in the room. More careful, more calculated, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, agreeing with opinions she'd never held before. Still, what could I do? She was 31 years old. She made her own choices. So when they got engaged, we did what parents do. We smiled, we congratulated, and when they mentioned they couldn't afford a house, we bought them one. $485,000, a nice place in Muller. When the wedding plans started spiraling into something that belonged in a magazine, we paid for that too. $127,000 for flowers and venues, and a dress Megan would wear once. She's our only daughter, Vera said when I raised an eyebrow at the caterer's bill. Let her have her day. I couldn't argue with that. The wedding was on a Saturday in June at the Driscoll Hotel downtown. 200 guests, crystal chandeliers, enough flowers to fill a greenhouse. Megan looked beautiful. She looked exactly like Vera did on our wedding day, and that thought made my chest tight in a way I couldn't explain. I was standing near the bar, going over my speech in my head, when Marcus appeared at my elbow. Marcus Washington has been our driver for 18 years. His father worked at a plant where I was a manager before I started my own business. When the plant closed, I gave his father a job at my first dealership. When his father retired, Marcus took over driving for us. He's family in every way that matters. Mr. Harrison, Marcus said, and something in his voice made me look up. His face was wrong, tight, controlled, like he was holding something back. I need you to come to the car, right now. Marcus, I'm about to give a speech. Sir, he leaned closer. Please, trust me. I've trusted Marcus with my life for nearly 2 decades. I followed him. We walked through the service corridor, out the back entrance to where the limousine was parked away from the main lot. Marcus moved fast, checking over his shoulder twice, and then I saw Vera. She was climbing into the trunk of the limo, not getting in, being helped in. By Marcus. What in the... I grabbed Marcus's arm. What are you doing with my wife? Marcus's eyes met mine, steady, urgent. Sir, you need to hide too, both of you. Get in and stay quiet. You need to see this. See what? Marcus, this is insane. Trust me. His voice cracked just slightly. 18 years, Mr. Harrison. Have I ever steered you wrong? Behind us, I heard voices, laughter, getting closer. Vera's hand reached out from the trunk. Her eyes found mine in the dim light, and I saw it, that slight tilt of her head. She trusted him. She was telling me to trust him too. I climbed in beside her. Marcus threw a blanket over us, leaving just a gap, a small space where light filtered through. Don't move, he whispered. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear. The trunk lid closed, not all the way. Through the gap I could see the parking lot, the back of the hotel, a slice of blue Texas sky. The voices got louder, closer. I recognized my daughter's laugh.
The trunk smelled like metal and carpet cleaner. My heart pounded against my ribs as I pressed against Howard in the darkness. I trusted Marcus. 18 years of trust. He'd driven me to hospitals, waited through endless appointments, never once let us down. He wouldn't do this without reason. But reason felt very far away in that cramped, dark space. Howard's hand found mine, squeezed once. I squeezed back. Through the gap in the trunk lid, I could see sunlight, pavement, white roses spilling from a planter. Then, shadows, movement, voices I knew better than my own heartbeat. Finally, Megan said. I thought that ceremony would never end. My daughter, my only child, the baby I'd held through 16 hours of labour, the toddler who used to fall asleep in my arms every night. 6 more months, Jason said. I could hear the smirk in his voice. Maximum. The old man's already slipping. Mum's already like a vegetable, Megan replied, her voice cold and dismissive. Doesn't notice anything. It shouldn't be hard. Howard's grip on my hand tightened until it hurt. A vegetable. My daughter called me a vegetable. The competency papers are ready. Richard Coleman, Jason's father, senior partner at the law firm, voice like old money and older contempt. I know a judge who'll sign whatever we put in front of him. We take control of everything, Jason finished. The trust, the properties, all of it. The key is not letting them give anything away first. Patricia Coleman's sugar-coated poison. These idiots would donate everything to a dog shelter if we let them. Idiots. Wasted. I thought of every check we'd written, the house we'd given them because we wanted our daughter to have security. $400,000 to $85,000 for this. I'd spent 32 years as a librarian learning to read people, the nervous student who needs encouragement, the grieving widow who needs silence. You learn to see what's underneath the words. How had I missed this? I thought back to the signs. Jason's interest in Howard's business, which I'd mistaken for respect. Megan's questions about estate planning, which I'd attributed to adult responsibility. The way they always visited when they needed something and left the moment they got it. The way my daughter had stopped calling just to talk. All right, Megan said. We need to get back before someone notices. Remember, Jason added, today we love them. Smiles, hugs, grateful tears, the whole performance. I've been performing for 31 years, Megan replied. I think I know how to handle my parents. Footsteps fading, silence. The trunk opened. Marcus helped us out, his face creased with worry. I heard Jason on the phone last week, talking about the plan. Today, when they all snuck away together, I had to make sure you heard it yourselves. My legs were shaking, but I didn't cry. I saved tears for sad movies and beautiful sunsets, not for moments when tears would be weakness. We need to go back, I said. The reception isn't over. Howard looked at me. 43 years of marriage gave us a language without words. His eyes asked, "Are you sure?" Mine answered, "They can't know we know." We walked back into the Driscoll Hotel, smiled, hugged guests, posed for photographs. Howard gave his speech, beautiful, loving, about watching Megan grow up, about the joy she'd brought into our lives. His voice never wavered. His eyes were warm. Only I could see the ice beneath. Megan cried during the speech, threw her arms around her father, kissed his cheek, whispered, "I love you, Daddy," loud enough for everyone to hear. I watched her face over Howard's shoulder. Not a single genuine tear. The drive home was silent. We sat in our dark living room, shadows everywhere, the lingering smell of flowers I'd bought for the occasion. "What do we do?" I finally asked. "We plan," Howard said. Together. "She's our daughter, Howard." "No." His voice was soft, but something new was in it. "Our daughter disappeared somewhere along the way. This person is a stranger wearing her face." I wanted to argue, but I'd heard her laugh in that parking lot. "They think we're fools," I said slowly. "They think we don't notice anything. Then we give them what they expect." Howard took my hand gently, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "We play dumb. We play old. We let them think their plan is working." And meanwhile, Howard smiled, not the warm smile I fell in love with, but the smile of a man who'd built an empire from nothing, outmaneuvered competitors and survived recessions. "Meanwhile, we build a plan of our own. I'm calling Eleanor, first thing in the morning." Eleanor Grant, my college roommate, now one of the best trust attorneys in Texas. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. "Once we start down this road." They wanted to have me declared incompetent. His voice was quiet, dangerous. "They called you a vegetable. They're planning to take everything we built. This isn't revenge, Vera. This is consequence." His forehead touched mine, the way it had on our wedding night. "Together," I said. "Always," he answered. Outside, the Austin night was warm and still. Somewhere in this city, our daughter was celebrating, laughing with her husband about the fortune they planned to steal. She had no idea what was coming. Neither did we. But we would figure it out the way we'd figured out everything else in 43 years, side by side, together until the end. "First thing in the morning," I agreed. "Eleanor's office." Howard's smile widened just slightly. "And then we get to work."
Marcus opened the trunk the moment the voices faded. I climbed out first, then reached for Vera. Her hands were cold, but her eyes were dry. "That's my wife. She saves her tears for things that deserve them, and betrayal doesn't qualify." "How did you know?" I asked Marcus, keeping my voice low even though we were alone. He leaned against the limo, arms crossed. "About a week ago, I was waiting in the car while Jason had a meeting. He stepped outside to take a call. I had my window cracked for air." Marcus shook his head. He was talking to his father, something about the plan and getting the old man's signature before he wises up. I wasn't sure what it meant, but I started paying attention. "And today? Today I saw all four of them slip away from the reception, the way they were huddled together, looking around to make sure no one followed." Marcus met my eyes. I grabbed Mrs. Harrison. "I'm sorry if I scared you, ma'am, but I knew you needed to hear it for yourselves." Vera touched his arm. "You did the right thing, Marcus." I looked at my driver, this man who'd been part of our lives for 18 years, who'd never asked for more than a fair wage and honest treatment. He'd just saved us from something we couldn't even fully comprehend yet. "Marcus," I said, "your phone. Was it recording?" He blinked, then slowly pulled his phone from his pocket and checked. His expression shifted. I had voice memos open. From earlier when I was making a grocery list for my wife. I never turned it off." So everything they said, it's all here. Vera and I exchanged a glance, one of those glances that contains an entire conversation. Keep that safe, I told him. Don't delete anything. Don't tell anyone. We walked back into the Driscoll Hotel through the service entrance, straightening our clothes, composing our faces. The transformation was almost physical. I could feel myself sliding into the role of proud father, happy host, devoted grandfather-to-be. The reception was in full swing. 200 guests laughing and drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's car payments. Music playing, children running between tables. And there was Megan, radiant in her white dress, dancing with Jason. She looked so beautiful, so happy, so false. I made my way to the microphone. The DJ saw me coming and cut the music. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "the father of the bride." Applause, smiles. All those faces turned toward me, expecting warmth and wisdom. I delivered exactly what they expected. "When Megan was 5 years old," I began, "she asked me why I loved her mother so much. I told her it was because Vera made me want to be a better man." I paused, letting the crowd chuckle. Megan looked at me very seriously and said, "Daddy, you should probably keep trying, because you're not there yet." Laughter rippled through the room. Even Jason smiled. I continued. I talked about watching Megan grow up, about her first day of school, her graduation, the phone call when she told us she'd met someone special. I talked about welcoming Jason into our family, about the joy of seeing them build a life together. Every word was honey. Every sentence was perfect. And inside, I was ice. Megan rushed up to hug me when I finished. "Ah, I love you, Daddy," she whispered, her arms tight around my neck. "I love you too, sweetheart," I replied. The words tasted like ash. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and careful conversations. I watched Jason shake hands with our friends, all charm and confidence. I watched Richard Coleman survey the room like he was calculating the value of everything in it. I watched Patricia compliment Vera's dress while her eyes said something entirely different. And I watched Megan play her part flawlessly. The grateful daughter, the blushing bride, the perfect performance. She'd been practicing for 31 years, after all. We didn't speak on the drive home. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, giving us privacy. Vera sat beside me, her hand in mine, both of us staring out at the Austin skyline. Our home felt different when we walked in. The same furniture, the same photographs on the walls, the same grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, but something had shifted. The air felt heavier. We sat in the living room without turning on the lights. The moon cast silver shadows across the floor. "What do we do now?" Vera finally asked. I thought about everything we'd heard. The competency papers, the judge who would sign anything, the plan to take control of everything we'd built. "We do what we've always done," I said. "We plan." "She's still our daughter, Howard." "Is she?" The question came out harder than I intended. I softened my voice. "Vera, she called you a vegetable. She laughed about it. Whatever happened to our Megan, whoever she became, that person wants to destroy us." Vera was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "Then we need to be smarter than her. We need to be 3 steps ahead. We need help. Professional help." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling Eleanor first thing in the morning. We need a meeting tomorrow." "Eleanor Grant?" Vera nodded slowly. "She's the best trust attorney in Texas. And she's been your friend for 40 years. She'll fight for us." I set an alarm for 7 a.m. Then I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved since I was 24 years old, this partner who'd stood beside me through every victory and defeat. "We're going to fix this," I told her, "whatever it takes." Vera leaned her head against my shoulder. Together. Always. But neither of us slept that night.
I spent the night looking at old photographs. There was Megan at 3 years old, chocolate ice cream smeared across her cheeks, grinning at the camera. Megan at 7, missing her 2 front teeth, holding up a drawing of our family. Megan at 16, awkward and beautiful in her prom dress. Megan at 22, graduating from college, throwing her cap in the air. Where did we lose her? I searched every image for signs of what she would become. The cold calculation, the casual cruelty. Had it always been there, hiding behind that sweet smile? Or had something changed her? Someone changed her. Howard found me in the study at 3 in the morning, photos spread across the desk. "You should sleep," he said softly. "So should you." He sat down beside me, picked up a photo of Megan's 5th birthday party. "I keep thinking about all the things I might have done wrong. Too much money, not enough boundaries. Maybe I spoiled her." "We both did." I took his hand. "But Howard, plenty of children grow up with privilege and don't turn into this." "No." He set down the photo. "They don't." The morning came too quickly. Marcus drove us downtown to Eleanor Grant's office on Congress Avenue. The building was tall and modern, all glass and steel, the kind of place where serious business happened. Eleanor met us in the lobby herself. She was 58 years old, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing a suit that cost more than some people's rent. We'd been friends since freshman year at UT, but right now she wasn't my friend. She was our attorney. "I cleared my morning," she said, leading us to a conference room on the 12th floor. "Tell me everything." So we did. We told her about the wedding, about Marcus hiding us in the trunk, about every word we'd heard in that parking lot. When we finished, Eleanor sat back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "Do you have the recording?" I handed her Marcus's phone. She listened to the entire thing twice, making notes on a legal pad. "Texas is a one-party consent state," she said finally. "Marcus was present and consenting to the recording. This is admissible." She paused. "But more importantly, they haven't done anything yet. They've planned, they've discussed, but they haven't filed any paperwork or taken any legal action." "Which means," Howard leaned forward, "which means you have time." Eleanor smiled, a sharp, professional smile. "And options." She explained our situation methodically. All our assets were already in a revocable living trust, something we'd set up years ago for estate planning. We could modify that trust at any time, for any reason. "What about the house?" I asked. "The one we gave Megan?" Eleanor's smile widened. "That's the interesting part. I reviewed the paperwork when you first bought it. Do you remember what you actually signed?" I didn't. Howard didn't either. "It wasn't a gift deed," Eleanor said. "It was a promissory note, a zero-interest loan, payable on demand. Megan signed the agreement. She probably didn't read it. Most people don't read what they sign, for family. So the house," Howard started, "is technically still secured by a debt she owes you. $485,000, callable at any time." Howard and I looked at each other. I saw the same thought in his eyes that was forming in my mind. "What can we do?" I asked. Eleanor stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Austin skyline. "The smart play is patience. They think you're oblivious. Let them keep thinking that. Every move they make, every conversation they have, they'll be overconfident. They'll make mistakes. And meanwhile? Meanwhile, we restructure everything. New trust provisions, new conditions for inheritance, legal protections so airtight that no judge in Texas could break them." She turned back to us. "When they finally make their move, we'll be ready." "And they'll have nothing." Howard nodded slowly. "How long do we need?" "A few weeks to get everything in place, maybe a month." Eleanor sat back down. "Can you play along that long? Pretend nothing's wrong?" I thought about Megan's face at the wedding, the perfect tears, the flawless performance. She'd been pretending her whole life. Maybe it was time we learned too. "We can do it," I said. Howard's hand found mine under the table. "Good." Eleanor gathered her notes. "I'll need you both here again next week. We'll go through every asset, every document, every potential weakness. We're going to build a fortress around everything you own." As we left her office, I felt something I hadn't felt since climbing out of that trunk. Hope. Not happiness, not peace, but hope. The sense that we weren't helpless anymore. In the elevator, Howard pulled me close. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted. "But I will be. We're going to get through this." "I know." I looked up at him, this man I'd loved for 43 years. "Because we have something they don't." What's that? Each other. And patience. I smiled. A real smile, the first one since the wedding. They think we're weak. They think we're old and slow and stupid. Let them. We'll use their arrogance against them. Howard kissed my forehead. That's my girl. We walked out into the Austin sunlight, hand in hand. Somewhere across the city, Megan and Jason were probably having brunch, celebrating their successful wedding, counting the months until they could steal everything. They had no idea what was coming, and that was exactly how we wanted it.
2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of smiling when I wanted to scream. 2 weeks of playing the role of doddering old father, grateful for any attention from his beloved daughter. Acting has never been my strong suit, but desperation is a powerful teacher. We met Megan and Jason for dinner that first Sunday after the wedding. Nice restaurant, white tablecloths, the kind of place where they charged $18 for a salad. Jason insisted on paying, with the credit card we'd helped them get, secured by our good name. "Dad," Jason said. He'd started calling me Dad now, a word that felt like sandpaper in my ears. "Megan and I have been talking. We're worried about you." I put on my most confused expression. "Worried? About what?" "Well," he exchanged a look with Megan, "you've been working so hard, managing all those properties, dealing with tenants, the rental income. It's a lot for someone your age." "I appreciate the concern, son, but I've been doing this for decades." "That's exactly our point." Jason leaned forward, all earnest concern. "You've earned a rest. Let the younger generation help. My father, you know he runs a law firm. He could connect you with some excellent financial advisors. Simplify your asset structure." Simplify. Such a clean word for what they really meant. "I'll think about it," I said. Vera squeezed my hand under the table. Our signal. Stay calm. Play along. The next morning, I was in Eleanor's office at 8 a.m. We spent 4 hours going through every document I owned, every account, every piece of property. The total picture was sobering. "You've given them a lot over the past 5 years, Eleanor said, making notes. "Let me run the numbers," she typed into her calculator. "The house in Muller, $485,000. The cars, a BMW for Megan, a Lexus for Jason, $62,000 combined. The wedding, $127,000. Furniture, appliances, various loans that were never repaid, another $173,000. She looked up. "That's $847,000, Howard, in 5 years." I'd known it was a lot. Seeing the number written down made my stomach turn. "And the house," Eleanor continued, "is the key. When you set up that purchase, your accountant structured it as a promissory note rather than a gift. Smart for tax purposes at the time. But it means Megan technically owes you $485,000, payable on demand." "She signed it?" "She signed everything. People rarely read documents from family." Eleanor smiled. "That's going to work in our favor." Over the following days, Eleanor and I crafted a new trust. A thing of beauty, really. The Harrison Family Trust, version 2.0. Under the new terms, Megan would still be a beneficiary, but with conditions. To access the principal, she would need to work for a registered, nonprofit organization for 10 consecutive years. She would need to complete a certified financial literacy course, and she would need to maintain 0 consumer debt for 5 years straight. Until those conditions were met, a monthly allowance of $2,000. Enough to live on, not enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. "Is this legal?" I asked Eleanor. "Perfectly legal. Trust creators can set any reasonable conditions they want. Courts uphold these provisions all the time. They're called incentive trusts." She paused. "The question is whether you're prepared to follow through." I thought about Megan's voice in that parking lot, the casual cruelty, the laughter. I'm prepared. We worked late into the evenings, Vera and I. She'd review documents while I made calls. We moved like a machine, each knowing our role. At night, we'd sit on the back porch with glasses of wine, not talking about what we were doing, just being together. One evening, my phone rang. Jason's name on the screen. "Howard! Dad!" His voice was too bright, too eager. "Listen, I've been talking with my father, and we have great news. He knows a doctor, a specialist in cognitive assessment. Very discreet, Very professional. We thought it might be good for you to have a baseline evaluation, just to have on record, for insurance purposes. I caught Vera's eye across the room. She'd heard every word. A cognitive assessment, I repeated slowly. Nothing invasive, just some simple tests. Memory, reasoning, that kind of thing. Dad says it's standard for men in your position. Protecting your assets, really. Protecting my assets. The irony was so thick I almost laughed. That sounds very thoughtful, Jason, very thorough. So you'll do it? I let the pause stretch just long enough to seem hesitant. Let me think about it. Why don't we all get together this Saturday? You, Megan, your parents. We can discuss it in person. That's perfect. I'll let everyone know. I hung up. Vera was watching me. They're moving faster than we expected, she said quietly. They're getting greedy. I set down the phone. A cognitive assessment. They want documented proof that I'm losing my mind. Are you ready for Saturday? I looked at my wife, my partner in everything for 43 years. Not yet, but I will be. We both will be. She came to sit beside me, her head on my shoulder. What if it doesn't work? What if they fight back? Then we fight harder. I kissed her hair. But we have something they don't have, Vera. We have the truth, and we have each other. Saturday was coming, and with it the first real test of everything we'd built. I couldn't wait.
3 days before our Saturday meeting with Jason, Megan called to invite me to lunch. Just us girls, she said. Mother-daughter time. I knew exactly what it was. We met at a cafe near downtown, one of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced avocado toast. Megan was already there when I arrived, perfectly dressed, perfectly made up, the picture of a devoted daughter. "Mum," she stood to hug me. "You look wonderful." "Thank you, sweetheart." The lie came easier than I expected. We ordered. She chatted about the honeymoon they were planning. Bali, apparently, though I couldn't imagine how they'd afford it on their salaries. Then again, I suppose that was the point. They wouldn't be paying for it themselves. "Mum," Megan said finally, stirring her latte with careful precision, "I'm worried about Dad." "Oh? He seems tired, distracted. The other day he asked me the same question twice." She leaned forward. "Has he been sleeping okay?" I took a slow sip of my tea, buying time. This was it, the setup, the groundwork for whatever medical charade they were planning. "Now that you mention it," I said, letting my voice waver just slightly. "He's been a bit forgetful lately. Last week he couldn't remember where he put his reading glasses." Megan's eyes brightened, just for a second, but I caught it. "That's exactly what I mean," she said. "Maybe he should see someone. Jason's father knows a wonderful doctor." "Yes, Jason mentioned that." I patted her hand. "You're such a good daughter, worrying about us like this." The words tasted like poison in my mouth. I told Howard everything that night. We were in his study, surrounded by the documents we'd been preparing for weeks. "She's good," I admitted. If I didn't know what she was doing, I'd believe she was genuinely concerned. "She learned from the best." Howard's voice was bitter. "We taught her how to manipulate us. We just didn't realize we were the ones being played." I couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m, I found myself in Howard's study again. He was there too, going over Eleanor's latest draft. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. I sat beside him. "Howard, are we doing the right thing?" He looked at me for a long moment. "They want to have me declared incompetent. They want to steal everything we built. They called you." "I know what they called me." I cut him off gently. "I'm not asking if they deserve it. I'm asking if we can live with it. She's still our daughter." Howard set down his papers. "Vera, our daughter was a little girl who drew us pictures and asked why the sky was blue. That person—" He shook his head. "That person planned this for months, maybe years. She looked us in the eyes at her wedding and lied to our faces. Whatever we had with her ended a long time ago. We just didn't know it." I knew he was right, but knowing and accepting are different things. "This isn't revenge," Howard said softly. "This is consequence. There's a difference." I reached for his hand. We sat there in silence, two people, who'd shared 43 years, facing something neither of us ever expected. The next morning, Megan called again, but this time her voice was different, higher, excited, the way it used to sound when she was a child and couldn't contain her joy. Mum, I have the most amazing news. My heart stuttered. What is it, sweetheart? Jason and we're pregnant. You're going to be a grandma. The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. I looked at Howard, who was watching me with sudden alarm. I mouthed the words, "She's pregnant." His face went pale. Mum, are you there? Yes, I managed. Yes, I'm here. Megan, that's wonderful news. I know we just found out yesterday. The doctor says everything looks perfect. We're due in February. A grandchild. Our first grandchild. And everything we'd planned, the trust changes, the legal maneuvers, the consequences we'd so carefully constructed, all of it suddenly felt different, more complicated, more weighted. We have to celebrate, Megan was saying. This Saturday, when we all get together, we can make it a real announcement. Jason's parents don't know yet either. That sounds lovely, I heard myself say. Saturday, we'll celebrate. I hung up. Howard was standing now, his face a mixture of emotions I couldn't read. A baby, he said. A baby. Does this change anything? I thought about that question for a long moment. A grandchild, innocent, blameless, about to be born into a family of lies and manipulation. No, I said finally. It doesn't change what they did, what they planned. I met Howard's eyes. But it does change what we need to do. We need to protect that child too. Howard nodded slowly. A trust fund. For the grandchildren. Managed independently until they're adults. Megan and Jason can't touch it. Exactly. We stood there in our kitchen, the morning sun streaming through the windows, holding hands like we had on our wedding day. Everything was about to change. But we were ready. We had to be.
The pregnancy changed everything and nothing. Vera and I sat in Eleanor's office the next morning. The ultrasound photo Megan had texted us, glowing on my phone screen. A tiny bean-shaped blur. Our grandchild. This complicates things, Eleanor said, leaning back in her chair. Does it change our legal position? I asked. Not technically, but emotionally, strategically. She tapped her pen against the desk. A pregnant daughter makes everything messier. If this goes to court, and I don't think it will, but if it does, judges don't like seeing expectant mothers in distress. Vera spoke up. We're not trying to hurt Megan. We're trying to protect ourselves. And now, protect that child too. Then we add provisions. Eleanor pulled out a fresh legal pad. A separate trust for grandchildren. $500,000. Managed by an independent trustee until they reach 25. Megan and Jason can't touch a penny of it. I thought about that. $500,000. Set aside for a child who didn't exist yet. A child whose parents were plotting to steal everything from us. Do it, I said. The family dinner was scheduled for Saturday evening. Our house, 6 o'clock. Megan and Jason would announce the pregnancy to the Colemans, and we would all pretend to be one big happy family. I spent the days between preparing, not for the celebration, for the performance. The Colemans arrived first. Richard strode in like he owned the place, his eyes scanning our living room, the way a real estate appraiser might assess a property. Patricia kissed Vera on both cheeks, European style, and made a comment about how cozy our home was. From her, it wasn't a compliment. Megan and Jason arrived 10 minutes later, all smiles and barely contained excitement. The announcement came over appetizers, tears, hugs, champagne for everyone except Megan. To the next generation, Richard raised his glass. His eyes met mine over the rim, something calculating in that gaze. Dinner was served. Vera had outdone herself. Roast beef, twice baked potatoes, her famous pecan pie. The Colemans ate like they were doing us a favor. Howard, Richard said halfway through the main course, Jason tells me you've been thinking about retirement. Has he? Well, not retirement exactly, but simplifying your affairs. Smart thinking at your age. He smiled, all teeth. The business world moves fast these days. Hard to keep up. I set down my fork. Richard, I appreciate your concern, but I sold my business 5 years ago. The table went quiet. Sold it? Richard's smile flickered. I thought you still ran the dealerships. Sold to a regional chain for $12.4 million. I kept the land, I'm not a fool, but the day-to-day operations. Someone else's headache now. I took a sip of wine. What exactly did you think you were helping me simplify? Richard's face cycled through several expressions. Surprise, confusion, then something harder. Recalculation. The real estate, then, Jason jumped in smoothly. The rental properties. Those must be a lot to manage. They are. That's why I have a property management company and an excellent accountant. I smiled. But thank you for thinking of me. Vera's hand found mine under the table. Squeeze! We were on track. After dessert, Jason cornered me in the study, while the women talked baby names in the living room. Dad, he said, that word again like a splinter under my skin. I wanted to give you something. A gift, really. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a document, several pages thick, legal language dense as a forest. What's this? A durable power of attorney. Standard document, really. It just means that if anything happens to you, a stroke, an accident, anything, I'd be able to help manage things, keep the family protected. I flipped through the pages. Even without my reading glasses, I could see what this was. Not a simple POA. This was the nuclear option. Authority over finances, property, even the ability to modify existing trusts. If I signed this, Jason could do anything he wanted with everything Vera and I owned. That's very thorough, son. My father helped draft it. He's the best in the business. I'm sure he is, I thought, the best at taking advantage of old fools. I'll need some time to review this. A week, maybe. Jason's smile tightened, just slightly. Of course. Take all the time you need. But I could see it in his eyes. The impatience. The greed. They thought they were so close. They had no idea how close they were to losing everything. I walked him to the door that night, shook his hand, played the role of grateful father-in-law. When the door closed behind them, Vera was already at my shoulder. What did he give you? I handed her the envelope. She read the first page and went pale. If you'd signed this, I know. I pulled her close. But I didn't. And now we know exactly how far they're willing to go. What do we do? We call Eleanor, first thing tomorrow. I looked at the document in her hands, the trap that would have given them everything, and then we spring our own trap.
Eleanor's face told me everything I needed to know before she said a word. This, she said, holding up the power of attorney Jason had given Howard, is not a standard document. This is a weapon. We were in her office the morning after the dinner party. Howard sat beside me. His jaw set in that way I knew meant he was barely containing his anger. Walk us through it, he said. Eleanor spread the pages across her desk. Durable power of attorney with springing provisions, meaning it activates if 2 physicians certify you're incapacitated. But look at this clause. She pointed to a paragraph buried on page 3. It gives the attorney, in fact, the power to modify existing trusts. That's not standard. That's a custom addition. So if Howard had signed this, and if they'd gotten a friendly doctor to certify incapacity, which they clearly have lined up, Jason could have rewritten your entire trust, changed beneficiaries, liquidated assets, everything. The room felt cold suddenly. All those months of planning, of manipulation, of calling me a vegetable behind my back. It all came down to this document, a signature, away from complete control. The good news, Eleanor continued, is that he didn't sign it. And now we know their complete strategy. She gathered the papers. It's time to move. Over the next week, we worked with precision. Eleanor finalized the new trust documents. Sarah Jenkins, our notary, came to the house to witness our signatures. Every asset, every provision, every contingency was locked down. The new Harrison family trust had specific conditions for Megan's inheritance. 10 years working for a registered non-profit. Completion of a certified financial literacy program, 0 consumer debt for 5 consecutive years. Until those conditions were met, she would receive $2,000 monthly, enough to live on, not enough to live lavishly. And the grandchild trust, $500,000 managed by an independent trustee until the child turned 25. Megan and Jason couldn't touch it. We also prepared Eleanor's final weapon, a demand letter for the promissory note on Megan's house, $485,000, payable within 30 days. "Are you ready?" Eleanor asked when everything was signed and notarized. I looked at Howard. He looked at me. "Yes," we said together. Howard called Jason that evening. I listened from the kitchen, close enough to hear both sides. "Jason, I've reviewed the document you gave me, the power of attorney, and," eagerness in Jason's voice, "hunger. And I have some thoughts. But I'd rather discuss it in person. Why don't you and Megan come over Saturday afternoon? Bring your parents too. I think it's time we had a real family discussion about the future." A pause, then, "That sounds great, Dad. What time?" 2:00, we'll have lunch." When Howard hung up, his face was calm, too calm, the quiet before the storm. "They'll think they've won," I said. "Let them. Makes what comes next even sweeter." The next few days were the hardest. Waiting, preparing, going over every detail with Eleanor until we could recite it in our sleep. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. I found Howard in his study looking at old photographs. "Having second thoughts?" I asked. He held up a photo, Megan at 5, chocolate ice cream on her face, laughing at the camera. "I keep looking for signs, trying to figure out when we lost her. Maybe we didn't lose her." I sat beside him. "Maybe she was never who we thought she was." "That's worse somehow." "I know." We sat together in the darkness, two people who had shared 43 years, about to do the hardest thing we'd ever done. "Vera," Howard said quietly, "after tomorrow there's no going back." "I know. She might never forgive us. She might not." I took his hand. "But Howard, she was never going to forgive us anyway. She was going to take everything and walk away without a second thought. At least this way, we're giving her a chance to become someone better. And if she doesn't take it, then we'll know we tried." The morning came too quickly. Eleanor arrived at 1, an hour before the others, to review everything one final time. She set up in the dining room, documents arranged in precise order. At exactly 2:00, the doorbell rang. Howard squeezed my hand once, then went to answer it. Showtime. They came in like conquerors, Jason with his confident stride, Megan with her practiced smile, Richard with his appraising eyes, Patricia with her sugar-coated condescension. "So lovely to be here," Patricia said, kissing my cheek. "Such a cosy little gathering." I smiled, waited. We settled in the living room. Jason was practically vibrating with anticipation, the unsigned power of attorney, no doubt burning a hole in his briefcase. "Before we begin," Howard said, his voice calm and pleasant, "I'd like to introduce everyone to Eleanor Grant. She's our family attorney, been helping Vera and me with some planning." Jason's smile flickered, just slightly. "I didn't know you had an attorney." "Everyone should have one, don't you think?" Howard settled into his chair, especially when family discussions involve legal documents. The room shifted. I could see them recalculating, Richard's eyes narrowing, Jason exchanging a quick glance with Megan. "Now then," Howard said, "shall we begin?" He reached for his phone and pressed play. The recording filled the room. Megan's voice. "Finally! 6 more months maximum." Jason discussing competency papers, Richard bragging about his judge, Patricia calling us idiots. Every word from that parking lot, crystal clear, undeniable. When it ended, the silence was absolute.
The silence lasted exactly 7 seconds. I counted. Then Megan started talking. "Dad, you have to understand. That was taken completely out of context. We were joking around, blowing off steam. You know how weddings are. All that stress. We didn't mean any of—" "Megan." I held up my hand. Just one word, but it stopped her cold. "I didn't ask for an explanation. Jason leaned forward, lawyer mode engaged. Mr. Harrison, Howard, whatever you think you heard, I can assure you there's a perfectly reasonable. Jason, same tone, same hand. He stopped too. I looked around the room at these 4 people who had plotted to steal everything Vera and I had built. Richard was gripping his armrest. Patricia had gone pale. Jason's confident smile had curdled. And Megan, my daughter, was watching me with eyes I didn't recognize. Let me be clear, I said. Texas is a one-party consent state. Marcus had every legal right to record your conversation. This recording is admissible in any court. Richard found his voice. Now see here, Harrison. I'm not finished. I never raise my voice when it matters. Eleanor? Eleanor stepped forward with her folder. Professional, calm, deadly. Let's start with the house, she said. The property at 2134 Pekin Street. That was a gift? Jason said quickly. Actually, no. Eleanor pulled out a document. It was structured as a promissory note, a zero-interest loan payable on demand. Here's Megan's signature. Megan grabbed the paper. I never signed a loan. You signed 3 years ago. Perhaps you didn't read it carefully. Eleanor's voice was almost gentle. Most people don't read documents from family. The color drained from Megan's face. The balance due is $485,000. Eleanor continued. You have 30 days. We can't pay that, Jason sputtered. Then I suggest you make arrangements. Eleanor moved on. Now regarding the Harrison family trust. Richard stood up. This is outrageous. I'll have you disbarred. Eleanor smiled, the kind of smile a shark gives a minnow. Mr. Coleman, I would advise you not to make threats. We have documented evidence of your son planning to use fraudulent medical testimony to have Mr. Harrison declared incompetent. She paused. That's a felony in Texas. Conspiracy to commit fraud against the elderly. Richard sat back down. I watched his face go through 5 stages. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally a kind of sick acceptance. This wasn't going the way he'd planned. This wasn't going the way any of them had planned. The trust has been restructured, Eleanor continued. Under the new provisions, Megan remains a beneficiary. However, there are conditions. Conditions? Megan's voice was small. Lost. To access the principal, you'll need to complete 10 consecutive years of employment at a registered nonprofit organization. You'll need to pass a certified financial literacy program, and you'll need to maintain 0 consumer debt for 5 years. Eleanor set down another document. Until those conditions are met, you'll receive a monthly stipend of $2,000. $2,000, Jason started. That's enough to live on. Not enough to live the way you've been living. I stood up. And before you start calculating how to access our grandchild's inheritance, there's a separate trust for that. $500,000 managed by an independent trustee until the child turns 25. You can't touch it. Not a penny. The room was very quiet. I walked over to where Megan sat, frozen like a deer in headlights. My daughter. This stranger wearing my daughter's face. Megan. I knelt down so we were eye to eye. We're not doing this to punish you. We're doing this because somewhere along the way you forgot who you were. You forgot what family means. You forgot that love isn't measured in dollars and houses and inheritance. Tears were streaming down her face now. Real tears, maybe for the first time in years. The conditions exist because we believe you can be better than this. 10 years is a long time. Long enough to learn different values, to build something real, to become someone your child can look up to. I put my hand on her shoulder. We still love you. We always will. But we won't be your victims. I stood up and walked back to Vera. She was watching me with tears in her eyes too, but also pride. We did this together. We always do. I think we're done here, I said. Eleanor will provide you with copies of all the documents. I suggest you review them carefully with your own attorneys. Richard stood, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. You haven't heard the last of this, Harrison? Actually, I think I have. I smiled. Because if you pursue any legal action, that recording becomes public. And if you try any more schemes involving judges or doctors, Eleanor has already documented everything. Your reputation, your practice, your license. All of it would be at risk. I walked to the front door and opened it. Goodbye, Richard, Patricia, Jason. I met each of their eyes in turn. Megan, I hope someday you'll call us. Really call us. Not because you want something, but because you remember who we used to be to each other. They filed out in silence. No more smiles. No more performances. When the door closed behind them, Vera was at my side. Is it over? She asked. Almost? I pulled her close. One more thing.
I watched them leave through the front window. Richard walked stiffly to his car, not looking at anyone. Patricia's perfect posture had crumbled. She looked older, smaller, defeated. Jason opened Megan's car door for her, but the gesture was mechanical. His confident lawyer swagger had vanished entirely, and Megan, my daughter, sat in the passenger seat for a long moment before the car pulled away. Through the window I could see her face, empty, lost. Part of me ached for her. The mother in me always would. But another part, the part that had heard her call me a vegetable, that had watched her plan to destroy us, that part felt something else entirely. Not satisfaction exactly, justice. The knowledge that we had done what we had to do. Eleanor gathered her documents quietly. I'll file everything with the county clerk tomorrow. The trust amendments are already official. She paused at the door. You did well, both of you. Better than most people would have. Thank you, Eleanor. I hugged her. For everything. That's what friends are for. She smiled. Call me if anything comes up, but I don't think it will. They know they're beaten. After she left, Howard and I stood in our living room, this room where we'd raised our daughter, celebrated countless holidays, built a lifetime of memories. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting everything gold. How do you feel? Howard asked. I thought about it. Really thought. Tired, sad, relieved. I looked at him. Proud. Proud. Of us. Of what we did. I took his hands. We didn't crumble. We didn't give in. We protected ourselves. We protected our grandchild. And we gave Megan a path back, if she chooses to take it. Howard pulled me close. We stood there, holding each other, two people who had weathered 43 years of marriage, and now the worst storm of all. Do you think she'll change? He asked quietly. I don't know. The honest answer. But we gave her the chance. That's all we can do. 2 days later, we sat on our back porch watching the sunset. The Texas sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and gold, the kind of sunset that makes you believe the world might be beautiful after all. Marcus brought out a tray with 2 glasses of lemonade, fresh squeezed the way Howard likes it. Marcus, Howard said before he could leave, sit with us for a minute. Marcus hesitated, then settled into one of the wicker chairs. You saved us, Howard said simply. That day at the wedding, if you hadn't acted, we would have lost everything. Our home, our savings, our dignity. Marcus shook his head. Mr. Harrison, you gave my father a job when nobody else would. You paid for my mother's surgery when insurance wouldn't cover it. You've treated me like family for 18 years. He looked at both of us. What I did was the smallest repayment I could make. It wasn't small to us, I said softly. Marcus stood up, suddenly uncomfortable with the emotion. I should go check on the car. Call me if you need anything. He disappeared into the house, leaving us alone with the sunset. Howard reached for my hand. I gave it to him, the same hand he'd held at our wedding, at Megan's birth, through every joy and sorrow for 43 years. What now? I asked. Now we live. He squeezed my hand. We travel. We spoil each other. We restore more classic cars and make more handmade books. We wait for our grandchild to be born and figure out how to be the best grandparents we can be, whether Megan lets us or not. And Megan? Howard was quiet for a long moment. We wait for her too, for the real phone call, not one asking for money or favours, but one that starts with, I'm sorry, and means it. Do you think it will ever come? I don't know. He turned to look at me, his eyes soft in the fading light. But I know that we did everything right. We protected ourselves. We protected our grandchild. We gave her a chance to become better. That's what parents do, even when their children forget what children are supposed to do. I leaned my head against his shoulder. The sunset was fading now, purple and deep blue spreading across the horizon. I love you, Howard Harrison. I love you too, Vera Harrison. He kissed my hair. Thank you for being my partner in everything. Even this. Especially this. We sat together until the stars came out. Two people who had started as strangers at a university library 43 years ago and had become something much more. Partners. Best friends. Survivors. The crickets sang their evening song. Somewhere in Austin, our daughter was dealing with the consequences of her choices. Somewhere, our grandchild was growing, innocent of all the pain and scheming that surrounded them. And here, on this porch, Howard and I held hands and watched the night settle over Texas. It wasn't the ending we'd wanted, but it was the ending we'd earned, through love, through loyalty, through the simple, stubborn refusal to let anyone take what we'd built together. Whatever came next, we would face it the same way we'd faced everything, together.
If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.